This is the Meaningful Content Mixer. We are your co-hosts. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Bonnie. This podcast is for content creators seeking inspiration across disciplines to create more meaningful content.
From pre-sales to post-sales, we want to learn from each other because we are experienced enough to know how much we don't know yet.
Let's get started.
Hi, Bonnie.
Hey, Sarah. I'm excited about our retro today because I listened back to the last episode that we recorded and there were so many good things. So I'm excited about today.
Yeah, same. I think we're just kind of beginning to figure out how to make content most effective in that domain. So it's fun to still continue that conversation.
Yeah. And actually, after we released the last episode, someone on my customer success team actually reached out to me because he was in the middle of writing a blog post about this exact topic. I'm sure there are a lot of others out there who are doing the same thing and on the same journey. So there's really a lot to unpack when it comes to customer success content and what that can mean, who it can be for. So I wanted to call out a few of the main things that I noted. And maybe we can dig into a couple of those things, or maybe it'll spark some ideas for you. If I were to call out the top level categories of what we talked about, we talked about different ways you can capture content. So who's capturing it? What are they doing with it? How are they sharing it? Who has access to that information? It can be internal content where maybe the marketing team is leveraging content that the success team is using for their own internal messaging, or it could be customer facing content where, a customer success manager is capturing information that would be helpful to other customers.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's content structure. So different types of content would have a different structure. So how do you standardize that? I think the thing that stuck out to me the most was when Matt talked about creating content as a byproduct. When we think about creating content, if that's not your role, if your role isn't a content creator, it can seem intimidating to be like, okay, now you're creating content too. But making it a byproduct of your work instead of something that you do in addition to is a good way to ease people into that.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And actually, we published a blog post on our website a little while ago. We'll link to it here for everyone. We crowdsourced suggestions for what are all the content disciplines that people think of. And I see here, I think we had over almost 300 different suggestions of titles, and we ended up organizing them as primary content disciplines that actually are, I think these folks sort of consider themselves to be content professionals, content designers, content strategists, technical writers. Our secondary content disciplines are folks who create content as a significant byproduct of their work, is how we phrased it. I think a lot of folks are doing this. They are creating content as a byproduct of their work, as you said, but they don't realize that's what they're doing, or they don't realize that the knowledge they're exchanging maybe with their clients or their customers or their peers, that seems to happen just in one-on-one interactions. If they just repurposed that content or captured it somewhere more central, all of a sudden it is reusable content that would be useful for a wider audience.
Yeah, exactly. So where does customer success fit on that list? Is it on that list?
Oh, good question. Let's go see. Yeah, customer success we put right in that second grouping.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, we did that a while ago before we even had this conversation with Kelly and Matt. When I think about why it would be useful for customer success folks to think about themselves as content producers, in a sense, at least as a byproduct, it's how you would scale success. So in my experience working at software companies, often customer success managers, CSMs, are assigned to specific clients, and they're very focused on whoever their specific clients are, and most of their interactions are directly with those clients. If you think about when and how you'd want to scale that success opportunity, success is all about how are you helping your customers increase their value with your product or service. So how can you take those one-on-one interactions and share them with the wider audience? How can you take that super valuable knowledge that's cultivated with those one-on-one interactions and share it across your customer base?
Customers end up with a lot of the same challenges when they're trying to do the same thing. And so if you can capture that and share it among them, it makes adoption easier, it provides more value considering that journey and what the content looks like along that journey. You can really build out a good experience if you understand the content needs or what people try to do in that journey. So just as an example, maybe at the beginning of the journey, they're looking at a lot of onboarding content. They're looking at a lot of how-to content. They're trying to customize to fit their own workflows and things like that. The next customer who comes in may be able to take advantage of that information and ramp up even faster with that information already captured. But even when you think about that, that example that I just gave was really mainly about customer facing content. But what else could you create in the beginning of that customer journey? The customer success team will understand, the challenges that the customer face, the pains, the emotions. They have those direct quotes from the customer of what they experienced and how that was. And so, that type of information could be leveraged by the marketing team to have greater insight on those pains and solutions for the buyer. So it's really thinking about how can we leverage this really good information across the organization for multiple different reasons. And I feel like you actually told me about a book that you were reading that kind of talked about this a little bit.
Yeah. So after talking to Kelly and Matt and thinking about kind of what we talked about in that conversation, I've had this book on my shelf for a little while, Intertwingled by Peter Morville, published in 2014, I believe. And I've read through parts of it, but I was inspired to pick it up again this week. And just in the introduction already, I was having kind of,
you're feeling inspired.
I was feeling inspired. I was having like light bulb moments. So I'm going to do a brief reading from the beginning of this book. So I'm going to start on page 2 and then skip through a couple spots. It says here, our institutions and mindsets remain stuck in the industrial age. Businesses are designed as machines staffed by specialists in silos. Each person does their part, but nobody understands the whole. The machine view was so successful during the Industrial Revolution, we find it astonishingly hard to let go, even as the information age renders it obsolete and counterproductive in a growing set of contexts. It's not that the old model is all wrong. We're not about to throw away hierarchy or specialization, but our world is changing and we must adjust. So I'm going to read some more in a minute, but what he's kind of saying here is that maybe even when we think we're having an organizational view, our structures, our organizational structure, our mindsets are more siloed probably than we realize.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yes. And then this last bit that I want to read here says, in the era of ecosystems, seeing the big picture is more important than ever and less likely. It's not simply that we're forced into little boxes by organizational silos and professional specialization. We like it there. We feel safe, but we're not. This is no time to stick to your knitting. We must go from boxes to arrows. Tomorrow belongs to those who connect.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So I just feel like from those couple paragraphs, there's so much to take away. It's just interesting to me what he's saying about specialization, right? Because when we talk about across the organization, you've mentioned marketing, customer success. We've talked about customer support a lot. Another group that's coming to mind now is sales engineers who are doing a lot of often custom demos for prospects. We're trying to talk to each other, and we do, but I think we still, for the sake of efficiency, we're more separated and we don't really have information flowing across as much as we really could.
Yeah, we still have the knowledge and we communicate, but we're not sharing that knowledge in a streamlined way or in a regular way. It's not easy to tap into that. It's very much I have to outreach and ask a question or vice versa, rather than there's information flowing and I can go and grab that when I need it.
Right. And each group often builds their own workflows or processes that, are independent of each other. And so, we're talking to each other across groups, but our individual processes aren't really set up in a way that they can integrate for the most efficient
Yeah.
information flow.
We're all trying to break the silos in our organizations. And we've been talking about silos for a while and breaking down the silos. But it's one thing to know that it's something that you need to do, and another thing to actually do it. We think we're there, but we're not.
Yeah, because we're communicating all the time, but does
Yeah.
it really lead to useful change? I think that we need to find a better balance of our jobs, our day-to-day roles, our skills, our perspective. They should be specialized. It's necessary. We have to divide and conquer to get things done. It doesn't make sense for everyone to cross-train on all the things.
Yeah.
So if we think about the work that we do in our teams and as individuals, that makes sense to stay specialized. So I wish I could like visualize this somehow. So imagine that we stay specialized. Our silos can be silos. We can have our walls, but the information, like think of information, the knowledge as more like oxygen. The oxygen can flow completely through all of it. And we almost need to enable our knowledge and content to share in a more free-flowing way across all of those silos. Meanwhile, it's totally okay to have our interactions and our skills and our day-to-day work be quite different from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm smiling because I love metaphors, and
I feel like I didn't say the right metaphor. There must be a better one.
You created a metaphor for me in my mind.
Okay.
So I was on a webinar recently where somebody used an example of a city to describe an organization. So, there's the airport and the library and the bank and the post office. And as part of that, they all operate differently, right? You wouldn't expect the bank to have the same things going on as the airport, for example.
Yes.
And the metaphor here would be the knowledge sharing would be the river that flows through the city.
Okay.
And
this is way better.
Yeah.
This is way better.
So how can we, I don't know.
What if it was more like a canal in Venice, right? Like the river actually connects all of these things.
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, it's the knowledge is the oxygen. It's the river flowing through the city. It's something that we all need, and we all create. And so we just need to figure out ways to let that flow.
Yeah, and just be much more intentional about sharing the actual knowledge itself that can be repurposed, instead of, I think what we do unintentionally is talk about the knowledge to each other, right? But we're not actually exchanging the knowledge itself. And like he said, like we think we are, but we're not.
I love that you said that. We're talking about the knowledge, but we're not necessarily sharing it.
Yeah. One thing that I think is a useful endeavor for an organization is to try and move towards this idea of a shared taxonomy. So if you were to organize your knowledge, in a library or with like a metadata hierarchy, what would it be? And it would be a really interesting exercise almost to have each group do their own and then see how different they are, and then ideally figure out how they come together. So on the support side of things, one way I've been wanting to do this is organize the hierarchy of our documentation and our support team references in the same way that our product team prioritizes. And right now, those are very different, right? You'll see a lot of overlap in concepts, but they're not organized the same way. They're not approached the same way. And so it's like an exercise of coming together of how would you even organize, like you said, the most important topics? Again, of course, always from the customer perspective rather than internal perspective, because I think that really set the foundation for thinking about things across the board internally, constantly practicing about thinking about it from that customer perspective, what they need, what's meaningful to them.
Yeah. You can't go wrong if you're putting the customer first.
Definitely.
But yeah, this is a topic I think that we'll continue digging into further. I know the consortium is as well. So if anyone is listening and, maybe you're a CSM and you're already doing this, or you're looking to do this, we'd love to hear more about it and join in the conversation.
Definitely.
Right. Talk to you later.
Bye.